Port Phillip Bay is located in the south of Melbourne and covers 1,930 square kilometres. It's a hotspot of activity, particularly in the summer months, with thousands swarming to the beaches to fish, swim, and relax on the shore. However, there is a major problem sweeping the bay, with millions of pieces of plastic being fed into the bay from neighbouring rivers and streams. A recent study led by Sustainability Victoria, Melbourne Water, and EPA Victoria has estimated that 828 million pieces of plastic are entering Port Phillip Bay from just the Yarra and Maribyrnong River alone each year. Furthermore, 74% of these plastics are microplastics. Microplastics are defined as pieces of plastics which are smaller than a fingernail and are usually formed from the breakdown of larger items. The reason microplastics are so dangerous is because they can attract and absorb toxic chemicals from waterways and last in the environment for decades. Microplastics are also a threat to marine wildlife, as they can look like pieces of food and be ingested by animals. Ingestion can cause contaminants to be released into the bloodstream, internal injuries to occur, and or starvation due to their stomachs being so full of plastic that they are unable to eat real food. Larger rubbish items are also a problem, as discarded bags, bottle rings, fishing line, and nets are entangling and potentially drowning a variety of wildlife ranging from dolphins, seals, penguins, turtles, and fish.
So my name is Mike Weston. I'm an Associate Professor at Deakin, Wildlife and Conservation Biology, and my specific interest is about birds. And during the course of my studies and my practice, I've become very concerned about the conservation of birds, so making sure that we have viable populations of birds, of wild living birds into the future. I've seen pollution affect birds, I've seen oil spills occur and marine fluids, pollution released into marine environments that have caused problems for birds, oiling, to the extent that some of them have to be rescued and some of them have to have that cleaned off their bodies. But I've also seen litter affect birds very directly. So as someone who cares about bird conservation but also about welfare, I take a keen interest in my world, looking at birds, and in the types of birds I study, you tend to see what we call leg entanglements occur from litter. So litter that has threads or fibres or strings in it can get entangled around a bird's leg, and the bird is often unable to remove that entanglement, and unfortunately they often constrict, or there's a swelling, an immune system reaction in the bird that creates swelling, which means then the blood flow can be restricted to the leg, and that is pretty horrible to see. It involves limbs basically falling apart from lack of blood flow, eventually falling off, sometimes killing the animal. Sometimes those entanglements entangle other objects, so the bird is having to pull around a weight that's become entangled to it. And I've even seen circumstances, unfortunately, where both the legs have been effectively tied together by a piece of fishing line. And for a bird, like a shorebird that spends most of its life on the ground and has to run around to get its food, that's basically a death sentence, but not a quick death, unfortunately, a fairly slow, painful one. Yeah, look, in my experience, what I would say is that it's getting no better. So I think there's been high levels of entanglement for a long time. I've been involved in catching birds and trying to release those entanglements for decades now, and I see about the same number of entanglements from year to year. So not getting any better, and we as a society really should do our best to protect these animals, because I don't think anyone intends this to happen. It's something that's probably more around carelessness, leaving these fibres in the environment. However, it's very difficult to undo that damage. So I think they're occurring at about the same rate, unfortunately. Yeah, I think anything we can do to reduce the litter, the pollution going into the environment is really critical. And that's about being careful. It's about not being careless. It's about taking these decisions about cleaning up after yourself and taking your litter with you really seriously. It's not a victimless crime. Animals pay the price for leaving litter and pollution in the environment. So it's about thoughtfulness and carefulness. So if the bin on the beach is overflowing, take the rubbish with you. If you come across rubbish when you're walking along a coastline or near a waterway, pick it up and take it with you. Remove it from the environment, because the longer it's in the environment, the greater the risk it'll cause entanglement. And if it doesn't cause entanglement, we know it's going to break down and end up in the various ecosystems as they function. We know that plastics, the amount of plastics in the ocean, it's going to go through these ecosystems. It's not a big impulse just to pick it up and take it with you.
Some of the most widely found pieces of plastics are balloons, straws, soy sauce capsules, bottles, plastic bags, and polystyrene pieces. A common theme among these objects is that they all tend to be single-use items. However, you can make a difference in reducing single-use plastic by making a few simple swaps. This could include using bubbles instead of balloons for decorations, taking a reusable water bottle with you, don't take a plastic coffee lid or bring your own reusable coffee cup, bring reusable shopping bags to the supermarket made of cloth, and saying no to a straw or using a paper straw instead of plastic. Products and strategies you can use around the home to reduce your plastic footprint. These include buying biodegradable bin liners and doggy bags, buying in bulk to reduce individual packaging, recycle where possible, use reusable containers instead of disposable sandwich bags, buy microplastic-free face washes and toothpaste, and try to swap plastic for paper where possible. All these strategies can all help with the ultimate goal of cutting down the impact of plastic by reducing, reusing, and recycling. As previously mentioned, the government has implemented a management plan to reduce the amount of litter floating down the Yarra and Maribyrnong, with a total of 17 litter traps placed in the Yarra and an additional 3 in the Maribyrnong. The litter traps are placed strategically along the river and used to retain the floating litter, vegetation, and other debris. It operates quietly and without mechanical assistance. Another way litter reaches our bay is stormwater via our gutters. Yes, that bit of plastic you drop will eventually reach the bay via our gutter system. With more than 300 stormwater drains, anything from cigarette butts, detergents, litter, or even dog droppings will flow into the bay. Whatever you drop, it'll find its way to our waters and therefore increase the bacteria count, making our beaches dirty. Fishcare Victoria are a non-profit organisation with the aim to promote responsible fishing practices and increased stewardship of Victoria's aquatic environments. With the outlook of We Fish, We Care, the objectives of the organisation are to encourage sustainable behaviours and attitudes and educate the community on threats to Victoria fish, with the desired outcome being recreational fishermen adopting sustainable fishing practices.
My name's Jacinta. I am the Port Phillip facilitator for Fishcare Victoria. So we go out into schools and teach school kids how to fish, all the rules and regulations, various other environmental issues as well. We also work with community groups, and also we do some work with disability, mental and physical disability groups as well.
A project, Seal the Loop, has had continued involvement from Fishcare Victoria and aims to prevent discarded fishing line and other material from entering the environment by installing brightly coloured bins in popular fishing spots for anglers to dispose their waste in.
Is our Little Warriors program, which is all about what's really happening within the Port Phillip Bay watershed, looking at various litter issues in different ways that it's impacting Port Phillip Bay, and also not only just kind of telling people what's kind of going on, but also giving them the tools and the resources to educate themselves better, to be able to fix their practices, to make sure that they have a positive impact on the environment and only leaving footprints behind. I think it's having quite a significant impact just from what you're really seeing in a lot of the research that's coming out, especially around Melbourne. Especially when you're out and about, you can kind of see a lot of the stuff just littered everywhere. I think half of it has to do with laziness, really. People just can't be bothered walking those extra 3 meters to put stuff in a bin. And unfortunately, that's getting out into the waterway, and animals can't see the difference between a piece of plastic and a plankton. So it is having a significant impact, and that's definitely what's going on in the grapevine as well.
Can you go to get more information on Port Phillip Bay and the litter awareness weekend?
There's lots of resources out there. Google is your friend. So fishcare.org.au, we've definitely got a lot of resources up on our website about specifically sustainable fishing practices, green tackle practices. We have a great green guide that'll give you a checklist that you can use to look up what kind of gear you should take to make sure that you're environmentally friendly when you're fishing. There's also the Taronga Blue organisation is another really amazing one that's got loads of resources out there. And then also looking at what your council's doing, because there's a lot of clean-up groups around that you may not be aware of, so they'll have some great information as well.